Starting up a sprinkler system yourself can save you probably $60 to $150 if you do it yourself. And this is coming from a professional landscaper. I've been doing this for 21 years, and thousands of startups. They're not too complicated unless you run into problems. There's leaks or breaks or broken heads or things like that. But in this video, I'll show you the basics on how to start up the sprinkler system. The first thing you want to do is go outside and find where your backflow is if you have one on your house. Now, when they're winterized, a lot of times they will be left at 45 degrees, these ball valves here, and also these test ports are at 45 degrees. Sometimes if there's a spigot or a plug, it will be left open. So then we want to make sure they're all shut off. So start with the ball valve here, shut this off, shut that off, make sure this is shut off as well. We don't need water spraying all over. Then we want to shut these off as well. Now these are at 45 degrees. These are actually just miniature ball valves inside on these test ports. So we'll turn these perpendicular, which is vertical. That'll guarantee that we don't have any water spraying out when we turn the system on. So once we've got everything ready on the backflow by shutting off all the valves, go inside the house. Typically is where the shut off and turn on is. So what you're looking for in all this mess is a single pipe that goes outside. You can trace it usually to go outside, but this will be the giveaway, is that there's a shut off and then there's some sort of drain afterwards. This one I labeled with SS for sprinkler system. Sometimes there's a tag that says irrigation system. Here's another example, and you can see the backflow is just outside the house here. So you follow this pipe back in and you see here, this drain, this one's open, so we're gonna shut this. This is sprinkler drain right here, or sprinkler system drain. And then you got your ball valve, and it even says sprinklers right here. So the first thing you wanna do is make sure you have the right thing. So this will be shut off, this will be shut off, otherwise you'll get water coming out of the drain. Turning this on slowly is gonna allow us to listen for any leaks while it's going. So now we'll turn it on, but we're gonna do it slowly so we can listen to the pipes fill up with water. So that was quick. You heard them fill up and then stop. What you're listening for is nothing. What you don't want to hear is continual water running. That means there's a leak or something's open. So now we go back outside. Okay, so we're back at the backflow. We've got water from inside the house up to this first ball valve. So far, no leaks. That's the reason why I keep these all shut, so we can isolate a problem if we have one. So I'm going to turn this on, and there will be a little water that comes out of the top of this backflow. Now that amount is appropriate, because what it's doing is the water, and there's some air in there too, goes and sets these check valve. And by doing that, some water does come out. So if we don't see anything continuing to leak, that means we've got a pretty good seal on this backflow. Now, some people will skip this next step, but personally, I think it's a really important one. Before turning on the second ball valve, I like to bleed the air a little bit out of these test ports here. And the reason for that is sometimes that air can get into the valves and kind of get trapped in there, and I've seen them keep the valves open a little bit, or sometimes it'll rattle them. It's just easier to bleed the air out here than opposed to later down the road in a valve or something. So all you have to do is get your screwdriver, open these up. Just for a few seconds. Turn it back off again, do the next one. All right, so now we'll open up this ball valve. We make sure this is off, and we'll open this one slowly so that we can hear the water fill the main lines. And again, what we want to hear is running water and then nothing. So what that tells us is that the main line doesn't have any leaks. And now we don't hear anything. So we can open up this all the way. So the next thing I like to do is go to the valve boxes and open them up and make sure I don't see any leaking or water where the valves are. Okay, so we've got water to the main line, through the main line into the valve boxes, and I don't see any leaking here. So up till now, we have no leaking in the main line. Water is up to the valves. And the next thing we want to do is go to the clock. Okay, so we've got the clock here. And typically you'll find it in the off position when it has been winterized. So now it's the springtime, we want to set it to auto run. But before we just leave it there, we want to make sure that the date and the time is correct. So this date is correct. If you need to adjust it, you can use these here. I have a how-to video in another video. Set the time, make sure the time is correct. And it's almost correct. I like to be right on, so we're gonna make it the right time. The next thing is check the watering start times. It looks like we've got 8:30 p.m. and that is it on program A. And it's good to check different programs to make sure that you don't have any duplicates. So this looks like we only have the one program A starting at 8:30 p.m. Then we can check our station run times, make sure they're programmed. You've got station here, and then how long it runs. So we can just go through these really quickly. So it looks like we've got 11 zones on this sprinkler system. Now we check the days that it's going to run. It looks like we've got Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we should be watering it just 3 times a week. So we're gonna take Saturday off by pushing the minus here. That way we have Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday here. Next thing I like to check to make sure that we have our seasonal adjust at 100%. This is the base minimum. If we have the clock programmed for 20 minutes, it'll run for 20 minutes. So seasonal adjust, I always like to check that as well. Then we go to auto run. Now that doesn't mean we're done. It just means that the clock is programmed. Now what we should do is go through each zone, turning it on by the clock to make sure that the solenoid is operating and the heads are rotating and everything's doing what it's supposed to do. So let's start with station 1. So on this particular clock, if the dial is set to auto run, to manually start it, you can just press and hold this button, this forward button right here, and it's going to start watering zone 1. Now this particular clock is a Rainbird, and it's an ESP-ME. Really easy to operate, but the same principles apply for most clocks. There's a manual operating option, and you can turn them on zone by zone, or you can do the whole program, or you can jump around and do things if you want. All right, so looks like we got station 1 running. These appear to be spraying correctly and not broken, which is good. So as you're checking each zone, things you want to look out for, anything that is out of character. Spray heads going the wrong way, leaks, geysers. You want to check to make sure everything's rotating. Sometimes they get stuck. So it's a good time to kind of inspect the sprinkler system. Okay, so now into zone 2. So to advance, all you have to do is push this button here. Okay, so we've got zone 2 up and operating here. While you're going through the zones, it's good to check the valve box as well to see if there's any leaking that's happening after the valves. So here we are back at the valve box. This is one of them. I don't see any leaking in this valve box. Now onto zone 3. One thing to look for when you are starting up your sprinkler system is the alignment of the sprinkler heads. So you want it to water the grass, but you don't want it to overwater any concrete or driveway or anything like that. So a little bit of overlap is acceptable, but you don't want too much. Okay, on to zone 4. Now sometimes when sprinkler systems turn on, you'll get this junk on top. It's not gonna harm anything, but you can clean it up if you want. Now zone 5. This one looks good. Zone 5 looks good. We're gonna go on to zone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we'll speed through those real quick. Okay, now we're on our last zone. Now we've gone through all the zones. I like to switch it off to make sure that I don't have it running during the day when it's not supposed to. It shows that it's off. Now, make sure it's set back to auto run so you're on your regular programming schedule. And that's a basic sprinkler system startup. Thanks for watching. If you're still watching this video, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for staying to the very end.